The Punic Wars were a series of 3 major wars fought between Rome and Carthage from 264 BCE to 146 BC. They were among the largest and most destructive wars of the ancient world. The conflict shaped the future of the Mediterranean, determined who would be the region's strongest power, and had lasting influence on world history. Although they are called wars, they were really 3 separate conflicts with long breaks in between. But each war grew out of the previous one, and together they form one long story of rivalry, ambition, and changing power. Carthage and Rome were very different societies. Rome began as a land-based republic on the Italian peninsula, expanding slowly by defeating neighboring tribes and city-states. It was not originally a great naval power. Carthage, on the other hand, was a wealthy maritime trading empire located in North Africa, near modern Tunis. It had been founded centuries earlier by Phoenician settlers and had grown rich through trade across the Mediterranean. Carthage was famous for its powerful navy, strong economy, and influence over islands and coastal regions. By the 3rd century BCE, Rome and Carthage were the 2 strongest powers in the Western Mediterranean. Their interests overlapped, and both looked to expand further. This competition eventually led to the Punic Wars. Before the wars began, Rome and Carthage had contact but not hostility. They even had treaties to manage trade and avoid conflict. But as Rome expanded across Italy, it became a more serious threat to Carthaginian influence. Meanwhile, Carthage controlled many islands like Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica, which were important for trade routes. Sicily especially became the center of the rising tensions. It was close to both powers and had valuable farmland and strategic ports. Smaller local conflicts often created opportunities or excuses for larger powers to get involved. In this case, a conflict within Sicily provided the spark that eventually ignited the First Punic War. Neither Rome nor Carthage intended a huge war at first, but once they became involved, the fighting grew into a major struggle for dominance. The First Punic War started when Rome intervened in a dispute in Sicily. A group called the Mamertines asked for help against another city, Syracuse. Rome decided to help them partly because it did not want Carthage to gain more influence there. When Rome moved into Sicily, Carthage responded by sending forces too, and soon the 2 powers were locked in a long and costly war. The conflict was mainly a naval war, which was challenging for Rome because it had almost no naval experience at that time. Carthage, however, had one of the greatest navies in the ancient world. To compete, Rome built its own fleet from scratch. According to ancient stories, Romans even copied a captured Carthaginian ship to learn the design. Rome also invented a device called the corvus, a kind of boarding bridge that allowed Roman soldiers to turn sea battles into land battles, where they had more experience. The war dragged on for over 20 years. Sicily became the main battlefield, but there were also naval clashes across the Mediterranean. Many ships were lost on both sides, not only because of battles, but also because of storms. Wars in this period were incredibly expensive, and both Rome and Carthage had to rely heavily on their citizens and allies to fund the fighting. Rome slowly improved its naval skills and won several important battles. Eventually, Carthage could no longer afford to continue the war. The final major battle, the Battle of the Aegates Islands, ended in a Roman victory and forced Carthage to seek peace. The results were harsh for Carthage. It had to leave Sicily completely and pay a large amount of money to Rome. The First Punic War changed the balance of power. Rome's victory marked its rise as a strong naval force and gave it its first territory outside the Italian peninsula. Carthage suffered a humiliating defeat but was not destroyed. Instead, it turned its focus toward expanding its empire in Spain to rebuild its wealth and power. The Second Punic War is the most famous of the 3 wars, mainly because of one man, Hannibal Barca. He was a Carthaginian general known for his bold strategies, his deep hatred of Rome, and his daring actions, including the legendary march across the Alps with war elephants. This war is sometimes seen as a clash between 2 great military minds, Hannibal of Carthage and Scipio Africanus of Rome. After its defeat in the First Punic War, Carthage needed new sources of wealth. Hamilcar Barca, Hannibal's father, led expansion into Spain, building a new Carthaginian power base. Rome watched these moves with suspicion but tried to avoid direct conflict. Eventually, tensions rose when Rome made a treaty with the city of Saguntum in Spain, which was close to Carthaginian territory. When Hannibal attacked Saguntum, Rome saw this as an act of aggression. Diplomatic negotiations failed and Rome declared war. Hannibal's opening move was bold and astonishing. Instead of fighting Rome in Spain or crossing the sea to Italy, he decided to march overland from Spain into Italy. This meant crossing the Pyrenees, the Rhone River, and finally the Alps. The journey was incredibly difficult. The army faced harsh weather, dangerous terrain, attacks from mountain tribes, and enormous challenges feeding men and animals. Many soldiers died on the way, as did several of the famous war elephants. But Hannibal's surviving force reached Italy, an achievement that shocked the ancient world. Once in Italy, Hannibal won a series of spectacular victories. His army defeated Rome at several major battles, the most famous being the Battle of Cannae. At Cannae, Hannibal surrounded and destroyed a massive Roman army, killing tens of thousands of Roman soldiers in a single day. This is still considered one of the greatest military victories in world history. After these defeats, many peoples in Italy who had been forced to follow Rome switched sides and supported Hannibal. Although Hannibal caused enormous damage, Rome refused to surrender. It reorganized its armies, avoided fighting Hannibal directly for several years, and focused on cutting off his support. Rome also targeted Carthaginian-held Spain, slowly pushing Carthaginian forces out. Meanwhile, Hannibal waited for reinforcements from Carthage that never fully arrived. During this time, a brilliant young Roman commander named Scipio rose to prominence. Scipio studied Hannibal's tactics carefully and developed strategies to counter them. Instead of confronting Hannibal in Italy, he decided to take the war to North Africa, forcing Carthage to recall Hannibal to defend the homeland. Hannibal returned to Carthage and faced Scipio at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE. This was the final major battle of the war. Scipio defeated Hannibal by using flexible formations and clever tactics to neutralize Hannibal's elephants and cavalry. After this defeat, Carthage had no choice but to seek peace. The terms were severe. Carthage had to give up its Spanish territories, surrender most of its navy, pay another huge amount of money, and agree not to wage war without Rome's permission. Hannibal later fled Carthage to avoid being handed over to Rome and eventually died in exile. Rome, now victorious, became the dominant power in the western Mediterranean. Although Carthage had been weakened, it still existed as a wealthy trading city. Some Romans feared that it might someday rise again. Over the years, Roman politicians, especially one named Cato the Elder, constantly warned that Carthage remained a threat. According to legend, Cato ended every speech with the words, "Carthage must be destroyed." The Third Punic War began partly because of these fears, but also because Rome wanted complete control and found excuses to intervene. Carthage broke the treaty, though arguably under pressure, by defending itself against attacks from a neighboring African kingdom. Rome used this as justification to launch a final war. This conflict was much shorter than the previous ones, but it was brutal. Rome sent a large army to North Africa and besieged Carthage itself. The city was heavily fortified and defended by citizens determined to survive. The siege lasted for about 3 years. When Roman troops finally broke through the walls, street fighting continued. The Romans eventually destroyed Carthage, almost completely burning buildings, killing or enslaving the population, and ending the Carthaginian state forever. Thus, in 146 BCE, the Third Punic War ended, and Carthage, once a great empire, ceased to exist. Rome became the unquestioned master of the Western Mediterranean. The Punic Wars had enormous effects, not only for Rome and Carthage, but also for the development of Western civilization. Rome emerged from the wars as the strongest power in the Mediterranean world. It controlled Italy, Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, Spain, and parts of North Africa. Rome also gained enormous wealth from conquered lands and from trade. This expansion marked the beginning of Rome's transformation from a regional power into a vast empire that would dominate Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East for centuries. The destruction of Carthage ended one of the ancient world's great civilizations. Its culture, language, and political system largely disappeared. Some people in the surrounding regions continued Punic traditions, but the powerful Carthaginian state was gone forever. Rome now had no rivals in the Western Mediterranean. Victory brought wealth to Rome, but it also created problems. Rich Roman families grew richer by taking land and slaves from conquered territories. Many ordinary farmers struggled because they could not compete with large slave-run estates. Social tension increased, leading to political conflicts in the next centuries. The rise of powerful generals who commanded loyal armies contributed to the end of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire under emperors. The Punic Wars taught Rome important lessons about naval power, logistics, and battlefield tactics. Rome learned from Hannibal's strategies and adopted more flexible military approaches. Over time, Rome built the strongest, most disciplined army of the ancient world, using experience gained from decades of fighting Carthage. The wars influenced literature, legends, and historical writing. Hannibal became a symbol of military genius. Roman authors wrote extensively about the wars, praising Roman strength and determination. The struggle between Rome and Carthage is still studied today for its strategic lessons and dramatic human stories. The Punic Wars were more than just ancient conflicts. They shaped the political map of the Mediterranean and influenced the future development of Europe and Western culture. If Carthage had defeated Rome, especially during Hannibal's campaign, the history of the Western world could have been very different. Rome might never have become the great empire that spread Latin language, Roman law, engineering, and culture across a vast territory. These wars also show how rivalries between rising powers can escalate. They demonstrate the dangers of fear-driven politics, shifting alliances, and long-term competition. Many historians today still study the Punic Wars to understand how great powers behave, how military strategy evolves, and how societies respond to massive, prolonged conflict. The Punic Wars were a dramatic and transformative series of conflicts lasting more than a century. The First Punic War taught Rome how to fight at sea. The Second Punic War produced some of the most famous battles in history and pitted two brilliant commanders, Hannibal and Scipio, against each other. The Third Punic War ended with the complete destruction of Carthage, removing Rome's greatest rival and marking the start of Roman dominance. In simple terms, the Punic Wars tell a story of ambition, competition, bravery, tragedy, and the rise and fall of nations. They remain one of the most important chapters in ancient history and continue to fascinate historians, writers, and readers around the world.